Good morning. If people can give some thumbs up and let me know that I have some people out there listening. I see Lisa. Good morning, Lisa. Good morning, Autumn. Thank you guys for coming on. Or two, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Hope everybody is well and staying safe, staying occupied. The good news is you get lots of time with your ball. So some of what I'm going to cover today is a little bit about me and my story. I don't usually like telling my story, but somehow they convinced me. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about the club. So I run the operations for the Sting since 2007. And it truly always been a huge part of who I am as a person. And so, really wanted to share with you my experience, answer any questions that you may have, and then, go ahead and conclude here in about 30 minutes. So I grew up playing the game. I grew up in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, and it, really from the beginning was a huge passion of mine. I just remember I had this friend Danny, and we used to just play all the time. It was just really a huge part of who I was. I was always spending time with the ball, and I became very, very successful at a young age in the city that I grew up in. The game is not like it is here. It was more, I wouldn't say recreational, but it was a whole lot less competitive. And I really had to find ways as an individual to challenge myself in the game, because I didn't really have that challenge on a daily basis. In terms of my journey, I made the national team at a really young age. I was one of the youngest to ever make the Canadian national team, and played really in high school for 4 different national teams. So really what that meant is that 3 weeks out of every single month, I was traveling and in national team camps. That was a pretty cool experience because the game really took me all over the world. I traveled overseas to Europe, to Brazil, all over the place. So really unique, and I was young when I was traveling, and I think that helps you learn responsibility at a pretty young age. It was interesting at the time during high school because the recruiting process is a little bit different than it is today. And so you truly decided where you were going to go to school your senior year by taking your visits to go off to some of the other schools. And so I did all my visits, and it was, it was interesting to kind of see the different environment, because really in college, they treat the athletes like professionals. So for me, growing up in the community that I did, and knowing that soccer was not, I always had to seek my own way to really rise above. This was an environment that poured into you to help you rise above. And so I was really, really excited and jazzed about having the opportunity. We also knew we just weren't in a position, where I had to have a full scholarship in order to make that move down to the US and go to school. And so, I had a ton of offers, and I remember it like it was yesterday. I was so upset with my parents because I didn't want to go on my last visit. I wanted to hang out with my friends. It was one of my last weekends. I'd been traveling a ton, and they made me get on the plane to go to Dallas. And I remember like it was yesterday. I came home, and in the car they were like, "Well, how's the visit?" And I was like, "I'm going to SMU." And that was it. And so it was a really, really unique experience for me because I really, at the end of the day, benefited from my parents having the foresight to say, hey, you need to look at this process full circle. At that time, leading into college, I decided I was going to SMU. I was also supposed to be playing in the World Cup, the Junior World Cup that summer. And so a lot of camps and a lot of preparation that goes into that. And in leading up to that, we always in these camps we played inter squad, which meant like you have 25 kids in a camp, you play 11v11 before you play some fixtures to see who would get the starting position. So we were set to play Italy in a doubleheader, and we were playing inter squad, and it gets really competitive because obviously you're fighting for your starting spot. And and I took an elbow to the nose and had got a very bad concussion, broke my nose, my cheekbones, and so I had a pretty bad injury leading up into the World Cup. And that was tough because I was out for 8 weeks where I couldn't even jog, and by the time I got cleared from a neurosurgeon, I had to work really, really hard to try to get back and get physically fit and prepared to be able to come back and contribute to the team. So through that summer, I remember, kind of having maybe an insane schedule. I would say like 5 to 8 hours that I was working out every single day, playing for a semi-professional team, really trying to do what I could to get back. And was supposed to be able to come back into a game that was supposed to be played in my hometown. And so it's kind of a cool deal because the local newspaper was following my story, see if I could get back. And right before the World Cup, and right before I was set to kind of make my big debut back, I got to let me know that I had been named to the alternate squad, or as an alternate to the squad. That was tough because, I had worked so hard. I was really looking forward to getting back into the team because I had been an impact player or a big part of the team, not more than, a few months prior to that before the injury. And I think they were trying to go with, the roster that had been training all summer and, certainly understand that. So that was a pretty tough blow to take at the time. But I remember I had worked so hard, I ended up going off to preseason at SMU there. And I came in as the fittest player. In terms of all the veterans, I was able to come in and get the top results on the fitness tests. And so even though it wasn't my plan at the time, it really kicked off my college career in the right way. And ultimately, I spent 4 years there. So it was a great way for me to start at the school that I was, going to be contributing to for that time. At SMU, I had a really great college career, and it was a Sweet 16 school at the time. And so I just, I fondly remember having to compete against some of those top players that sometimes are 2-3 years older than you, as a freshman, and, continuing to grow in the game over my college career. I think that's where you really learn to start to be an adult because it really falls on you. There's nobody there making sure you're going to class. You've got to really take care of your body and make sure that you're ready to compete at really the highest levels. And so, throughout the college game, I really felt like I learned a lot in terms of what set me up for life. And, really I felt like the game through the years taught me every single lesson that has equipped me to be who I am today and has allowed me to deal with many different situations in my life as I've grown, as an adult. After I graduated college, I wanted to go play professional soccer, but unfortunately the WPS folded the year that I graduated. And so when that happened, I decided, I guess, time to go get a real job. And that's what I did. I had a really good job at the Richards Group, but I really missed the game. And so I ended up having a stint at coaching back at SMU as one of the assistants there, and really found through that process, you're more managing college players, not really affecting the youth game. And I really felt like my passion was to help young women and girls do what I did over the years. And so I got back in and had the opportunity to be the director of marketing with Sting, and that was in 2007. Since that time, it's really been and really for my family. My husband is the director of soccer, and for those of you that know us, we work it all the time. It is part of who we are. It is part of our family. It is something that we feel like we have an opportunity to really make an impact in young players' lives. My daughter just got on and said we have the coolest kids, and that's true. But, for me personally, when I first came in with Sting, it was really a function of I wanted to put programming in place and work with the soccer staff and support them in a way that we can help kids do what I did, because the experience that I had was so over, so many years. And I do feel like it's everything I've done, through my youth career success now that I'm no longer playing the game anymore. Sting, and when we all started at Sting, we had 12 teams in the Richardson area. We now have over 240 teams, and we have 5 divisions. So we have a division in Corpus Christi, in San Antonio, in Austin, in Pennsylvania, and here in North Texas. And, while we've grown a lot, I feel like we've really grown purposefully as well, directly from our offices in the Dallas or Addison area there. And we've got a great full-time administrative staff that works it like we do and is passionate like we are about really making a change in the youth soccer landscape. And so that, and I think that administrative staff really allows the soccer staff to do what they do best, which is, to help your player move along so I head up the operations. I'm the COO for the entire organization. And I really feel like, from a female side, there are probably very few females that have that role across the country. And I'm really mindful of that. It's a responsibility that I really don't take lightly. Because I really do care about the members of our organization, and I want them to have that same impactful experience that was so life-changing for me. There's a lot of change that's going on now. There's a lot of change within our organization as well. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that because we've kind of entered a new chapter as an organization. So most people would know, and we had Sting Girls. And so even though we had 2 separate kind of sub-brands that worked under our organization, it was the same administrative staff, same soccer leadership staff. And the reality was that we had many coaches that crossed over between the 2 and coached within both organizations. And in really, really looking at, what is the way forward? What is the way we can be most impactful in the future? We really felt like that cohesive and unified approach was the direction that we had to go. And, many people know me. I'm very, very tied to the Sting history, the legacy of women over time. What Sting has created is something that's so special. It is so powerful. The history of Sting as an all-female organization is like no other. There's no other country that can say that they've done the things that Sting has over time. Whether it be all the national championships or traveling the world when they didn't even believe that females could play basketball on one, full length, and they had to play on 2 sides of the court. Sting has always kind of been breaking barriers. And I feel like now we have an opportunity to do that. The legacy that the women before us created and the legacy that the young women today are creating because of the field is a legacy that people want to be a part of, girls and boys. And, over time, and I think about it like this, women have always really had to fight for inclusion. They've always kind of had to fight for a seat at the table, whether it be all boys' schools that women have had to fight to become a part of, or boys' teams, or whatever it may be. Women have always had to fight for a seat at the table. And now we have an option to come together and as females to promote inclusion in the opposite way. And how powerful is that? And so when I really think about, the move and the way forward, I really think about how history doesn't change, but it sets you up for what you have ahead of you in the future. And when I was explaining to my daughter, watching the video yesterday, she said, well, why does Titans want to become part of Sting? And I explained to her that, what the women before us and what the young women continue to do today is they've created this extremely successful program. And the boys program is on the verge of that success. But at the end of the day, we're all stronger together. And I think we've seen that through this particular period of time where we've had to be apart. And so, we really felt like now was the time. Titans in, really the last year has kind of exploded onto the youth soccer map. The boys program has grown tremendously, particularly here in North Texas. But what we are finding is we have the same vision. We have the same goals. Why would we not share the same name? And so for our current Sting Girls, when you're thinking about, well, it is still very, very special to you to be part of the legacy and just the powerful story that is Sting. But think about the powerful story that we can now continue to create together as one. And I use the example, I coach my daughter's team, and so we've been doing these Zoom practices. Well, I have a friend whose son, is really motivated to become better, and he does our Zoom practices with us, and he has grown tremendously as a player. And when we actually get back out on the field again, my girl's playing a boys' league, I'm going to invite him to play with us, because guess what? He's a good little player, and ultimately we're about player development. We're about putting players first. So what environments can we put them in where they can continue to grow and excel? And it doesn't matter if it's a girls team with a boy on it, or a boys team with a girl on it, or a combined team that's playing in a boys league. Ultimately, that's what we want to look to do to facilitate player development. So when you go to players first, we want to support all of our players in the same way, with the same future, and be mindful of what we've come from. And so I really look at, what we have ahead of us as a really powerful time. And I think we send a powerful message, particularly on the Sting side, by promoting inclusion and not continuing with kind of that, even though we were cohesive in a sense, we now are cohesive in every sense. So I'm really excited for the future. I'd like to open it up for questions and, really answer anything that you guys might have. So go ahead. I'm looking at the comments. Rick, thank you. Nice job, Erin. Julie, I see you're watching. Julie used to be one of the original. She's near and dear to all of our hearts. Hey, Lindsay, how are you? Say hi to Zoe. So will all teams change uniforms? So Sting was due for a uniform year this year anyway, so all of the girls' teams were going to change uniforms. But given this change, everybody, including the boys, will be doing a uniform. Will the boys be getting ECNL? We don't know yet. The application is in. Obviously, there's conversations that go on with that every day. So we're still waiting to hear if we'll be accepted on the boy side. Jessica asked, what is one of your favorite soccer memories? It's an odd one, but at SMU, they used to call it Midnight Madness. And so what that was is it was your fitness tests every year we did to begin preseason training. And I remember just being, I don't know the word that you're prepared, but because I always came in very, very fit and ready to go. But it was like everything that you'd worked all summer for, you were going to be able to show your coaches and your teammates just the time and effort that you put in that Midnight Madness. So every year I would say at SMU, that's one of my favorite soccer memories. More of a question about you as a player. What moments in a team do you remember most outside of the field? God, there's so many, like my teammates were my family. I remember in preseason at SMU, going to somebody's apartment and all of us just crashing on the couches all over, ready for the next session. The travel is probably one of my most fond memories. We usually got like one afternoon where we could go see wherever we were at, but seeing the different cultures and seeing the different areas of the world, I would say that that's, some of my most memorable moments off the field. Sorry, you guys are seeing my hand. Do you think the newly named Sting boys teams will play a huge goal for us, just as, and we've talked about it even when the boys were Titans, one of our huge platforms on the boys and girls side, and that all of our players have, every option to compete from whatever level they play all the way on up to the most elite platforms. So yes, our goal and our hope is that the boys ECNL is in the near future, because ultimately that kind of completes the player pathway for us. But regardless, there's many other opportunities for the boys to continue to play at elite level until that comes to fruition. Are the Academy uniforms still going to be different, and when can we order? So Royal Nation handles all the uniforms, so I don't have like the specific details. I know ordering is going to open soon, and yes, the Academy uniforms will be different, and they're really nice. And then another question is, will the tassel tradition still happen for the girls? Absolutely. And a huge part of the identity of the Sting program. It has come to signify at your U11 year really a rite of passage, or a coming of age, where you've worked through your academy years. Now you get to sign your first club contract. And it also represents, that unique history of when you put on a Sting jersey and you put your tassels on, you pull up your socks, you put your tassels on, that, that's something that nobody else in the country has. And it means something, and it's time to pull up your socks and represent the jersey that you're wearing in the way that the people did before you. So no, the tassel tradition will not go away. We are looking to develop a special tradition for the boys as well, because ultimately that same idea, that coming of age, that thought of responsibility for what you wear on your chest is something that's, important. So, Tammy asks, how do you overcome your hurdle when you didn't make the national team after you worked so hard? What advice could you give the girls? Gosh, that's a tough one. And I'm trying to remember back. I mean, I know it was one of the harder times and one of the more difficult challenges that I faced, because ultimately it was also a bit embarrassing, and I know girls feel that too, but like when you work so hard for something, really, really pour yourself into it, and then you don't make it, but you have people that may be your best friends. That's not an easy pill to swallow. So what advice would I give girls? I do believe everything happens for a reason. I firmly believe that. And I think that, sometimes in trying to achieve something, even though if it's not your plan, I don't know the best way to say it. It's like sometimes you shoot for the moon, you land among the stars. And you may not see it that way at that time, but when you're able to look back on it, like I'm able to look back on it, I don't know that I would change anything. So trust the process. Keep working hard, because there's always things that you can do. You can only take care of the things that you can control. And you can't control whether or not you make a team. It's not your decision. The only thing you can control is the work that you put in leading up to try to make that team, and then how you react afterwards. Is it going to break you if you don't make it? And if you do make it, how are you going to make sure that you continue to contribute? So that's the advice that I would give the girls on that. Who is your favorite professional goalie? Well, my answer is not going to be somebody who you see currently, but her name is Erin McLeod. I grew up with her. She came to SMU with me. She was a dear friend. She played for the Canadian national team for years. And she has a really, really inspiring story. She is, one of the strongest people that I know. She's overcome many, many injuries, but she is driven. She is focused. And, I kind of got to see that from the inside out. So just knowing her process and knowing how much she put into the game. So her name is Erin McLeod. She played for the Canadian national team. She may be overseas. And she's also started a really cool project called the Mindful Project that we're going to be hoping to integrate into our academy to help our kids have a more mindful process, help them overcome mistakes, teach them tools to cope with pressure, all of those different things. Lauren asks, are the new uniforms for club only? No, new uniforms will be for club and academy. My mom asks, can you tell them about your Rio training, competing with boys on the field? I'm glad you bring that up. So after I finished my playing journey, I was, really wanting to continue to advance my coaching side of things. And so I went and took some coaching courses in Brazil. So I spent almost a month in Brazil traveling and playing, and also taking these coaching courses. And I was, I was the only female, that was there, that was a player. And I remember, because these boys in these professional academies, this is their chance, this is their life, this is, their chance out. And so they put me in like a different colored jersey. And it took 2 days for them to even pass me the ball. And then, like an idiot, I went ahead and did not do a good cross. And it took another 2 days before they gave it to me again, but through that process, I learned that, the game, it's different for everybody. And for me, it was something that I loved and I was passionate about, but for them, it was so much more than that. And it also taught me that, it's the little moments in soccer that matter. And so you really, be discouraged, but you've got to also be mindful that you have a responsibility on a team and you don't want to let your teammates down. And that's where that preparation comes in, so that it becomes so instinctual for you on the field. But that was probably one of the best months, that I've had, because, outside of becoming a family and all of those wonderful memories that I now have, but on the soccer side, just seeing the people who live and breathe the game, and what it means to them, it was truly remarkable. But it was also just a time where I really immersed myself in the game, as a player and also as a coach. What was the process on rebranding, and how did the club land on the new branding? Are you concerned about the dilution? I can't read the rest of that question, but what was the process on the rebranding, and how did the club land on it? I mean, we've been working on this new logo now for 8 weeks. The old logo is very near and dear to my heart as well. But, we wanted to try to combine the old with the new. I think the S is a really strong look that we want for our young men and our young women. It's edgy, it's bold, it's everything that, we kind of preach about, taking risks and being bold on the soccer field as well. It incorporates the old with the new in terms of the stars at the top. Those are our pillars, so pride, tradition, character, commitment, and leadership. The colors remain the same, so we're trying to kind of have that perfect blend of old and a new look. Do you feel the talent level in San Antonio and representing the Sting brand favorably? Fortunately, I can't see, so I'll just answer the first. Yes, and I think, in every area that we go, it's a process, and I do believe that we have seen, tremendous strides in every area that we are in terms of the quality of, the teams and how they've progressed within their leagues. I can't speak to it in detail because, that's really for the soccer directors, to speak to more so than myself. But I do see that in every area we make gains, and that's a testament to the wonderful staff that we have that work with the kids in each of our different areas. How did you balance your school schedule attending camps once a month? I was actually attending 3 camps a month, so I was only home for 1 week every month. My grades, I always had really good grades. I knew my academics, had to be a priority because, one day I wasn't going to play soccer anymore. I think a lot of it was just communication with my teachers and, a commitment to actually get the work done. I had, support from my friends who would get my homework for me. And, it wasn't like we are today where technology makes things easy. So, I had to work a little bit harder, but I do think that, particularly for our young players, if I could give them any advice, it would be to really focus on your academics. And even when your academics aren't in a time sense, your focus, meaning that you're off traveling or you're playing a whole lot or, you're in the collegiate environment and, you have to perform. You have to make them a priority in terms of your time, and because there is going to be a day where you're going to hang up your cleats. And what our hope is at Sting now with both our boys and our girls programs is that we've taught them life lessons along the way, and those life lessons are going to allow them to be successful in whatever. Probably have time for one more question. Does anybody have anything else? I don't think so. So, all right. Well, everyone, I thank you for tuning in today. Like I mentioned, I'm very, very excited about the direction that we are going. Lisa asked one more. What advice can you give to athletes regarding the perils of social media? The perils of social media? Uh-oh. That's Kenny. The perils of social media, I just would say be so careful. You put in all this work on the soccer field. You do all these things to set yourself up for success, to maybe get the college scholarships, to do all of those different things. But then you make a silly choice and you put something on social media that has a negative impact on what you've worked so hard, and that's my daughter Ella, on what you've worked so hard to attain. So on social media, just be careful, be mindful of your audience, and always understand, just like we do at Sting, put your best foot forward. So thank you, everybody. Like I said, I'm very excited about the new direction. I think that as a unified organization, it's limitless to what we're going to be able to accomplish. So thanks everybody for the time today, and looking forward to seeing